infrastructure. And Brad asked a question if this meeting was being recorded, and yes, we're going to share that on a future slide, but yes, to answer Brad's question, we are recording the meeting. Next slide, please. Great. So I want to talk briefly with you about language interpretation. So this meeting is being interpreted in Spanish, and for interpretation, you'll please connect using a tablet or a computer. There is a globe icon which will appear momentarily on the bottom right of your screen. And you do need to select the language of your preference. And that's a really important point to make because there will be Spanish speakers in the meeting, and for them to have their questions asked in Spanish and interpreted for us in English, for you to hear the question and answer in English, you will need to select the language of your preference. Go ahead, Francisco.
Buenas noches a todos. Queremos señalarles cómo se va a llevar a cabo la interpretación esta noche. Es necesario, para poder tener acceso al canal de interpretación, es necesario que se conecte usando una tableta o computadora. Usando su teléfono no tendrán acceso al canal. Y pulse el icono del globo en la parte inferior derecha de la pantalla. Seleccione el lenguaje de su preferencia, en este caso español. Y es importante que hagan esa selección porque habrá personas que tomarán la palabra en inglés y habrá personas que tomarán la palabra en español. Y iremos cambiando de un idioma al otro conforme sea necesario.
Thank you, Francisco. So the globe will appear momentarily. A great question. I understand we weren't seeing it yet. So again, there's the globe. So please select the language of your choice.
Por favor, seleccionen el idioma de su preferencia.
And one friendly reminder as we are
solo para
sharing
recordarles, conforme estamos recordando y escuchando su
because the meeting is being interpreted, if you do speak during the meeting, if you could please speak
si
slowly,
participan en la presentación, si pueden hablar lentamente para que los intérpretes tengan suficiente tiempo para interpretar en español para nuestros miembros de la comunidad de habla hispana. Por favor, la próxima diapositiva. Quiero hacer algunas presentaciones breves. Van a escuchar principalmente esta noche algunas personas. Nuestra moderadora es Catarina Archuleta. Yo soy Anthony Aragon con la Oficina de Participación de la Comunidad. Van a escuchar de Riley Lemie, que es uno de los planificadores principales de la ciudad. Y tenemos un par de individuos que van a estar en estos esfuerzos de diseños. Charlie Alexander, de la agencia Fernie Pierce, y Nora Newrider.
Next slide.
Que
And now I'm going to turn it over to our
ahora le voy a dar la palabra a nuestra increíble moderadora, Catherine Archuleta. Gracias, Anthony. Bienvenidos todos. Esta es nuestra tercera reunión del CAG. Es un placer verlos a todos.
Evening, so that we can participate, and sometimes there's background noise in each of our homes. Sometimes my husband wants to ask me a question and interrupts the meeting. So I know that happens for all of us in the new Zoom environment that we're in. So we're going to put everybody on mute as the presentation is being made, and we're going to pause periodically for question and discussion, and we'll take everybody off mute so that we can listen to one another and ask questions in the group. But if you have a question and you don't want to forget it and you really want to be sure that it's addressed during the Q&A, or if you want just an immediate answer, please use the chat window, and you can see that at the bottom of your screen. There's a chat icon there. It has a number 2 on it right now. That is where if in between presentations, if you would like to ask a question, please use that chat button. And we have a number of pauses where we will unmute everybody and invite all of our participants to participate in
activar los micrófonos e invitar a todos a participar.
So thank you.
Así es que gracias.
So we have a full agenda for tonight.
Tenemos una agenda bastante completa esta noche.
Update, the Lincoln Street Neighborhood Bikeway, East 51st
la
Bikeway,
ciclovía
East 45th
de la calle
Bike
Lincoln,
and I'll turn it over to
el
Riley.
ciclocarril de la 51 y las mejorías
So again, my name is Riley Lemire.
Bueno, mi nombre es
I'm with
Riley, yo
and I just
trabajo
wanted to say
con
thank you so much for taking the time out of your
me
busy
da un placer
evening
para
to
mí
join
estar
us
aquí con
and learn more
ustedes y
about these
agradezco mucho
projects.
que
We
ustedes se tomen el tiempo de
understand
estar
that
con
sidewalks
nosotros.
are
Yo
continuing to be a
entiendo que
top
las
priority
banquetas
for the
continúan siendo
residents of
una
Globeville
prioridad
and for
principal
the
para los
neighborhood as a whole. And so before we get into some of the
vecinos
bike
de
projects that we're going to be
Globeville
talking about tonight, we wanted to
y
provide
todo
an
el GS
update
en su
on where we're
totalidad y
at
quiero
with the
actualizar dónde
sidewalk
estamos
program.
ahorita con las
As
banquetas.
some of you know, there's $17 million that has been
Como ustedes
allocated
saben,
in the
se han
Elevate Denver
asignado
Bond Program.
17 millones de
That is
dólares para el
for
programa.
pedestrian connectivity
Ese es
improvements,
para
which
mejorar la
means
conectividad
gives
y
us the
hacer
ability to
mejoras.
build and construct new
Eso
sidewalks in the
significa que
Globeville
poder
neighborhood.
crear
The
infraestructura
first set
lo
of projects
suficiente
is currently
que
in
incluye
design,
banquetas.
and
El
we
primero
anticipate that
es
the
diseño
construction
y
of
nosotros
those
consideramos que la
projects
construcción de
will
esos
start
proyectos
next year
va a
and
comenzar el
continue on
próximo
for the
año y
next
va a
several years
continuar
in different
en
areas
los
throughout the
próximos
neighborhood.
años.
Those projects take a little bit
Estos
of time to
proyectos
get
toman un
designed,
poquito de
and
tiempo para
then the
ser
construction takes a
diseñados
little bit of
y
time
la
as well.
construcción lleva un poco de
So
tiempo
now
también.
that those first projects are being
Así es que
constructed, we'll start to see more and more being
conforme
built
se
in the
están
neighborhood.
construyendo esos,
The project teams
podemos
for
ver
those
en el
sidewalk
vecindario,
projects
pues
will be
tenemos
connecting
una
with
serie
the
de proyectos de
communities
banquera que se van a conectar con la
both on the
comunidad,
design
tanto
of
en
the
términos de
projects
diseño,
that are already in
proyectos de
design,
diseño,
but also on helping
pero
to
también
identify where future
ayudando a
sidewalks will go
identificar
in the Globeville
dónde van
neighborhood
a
as well.
estar pues las banquetas futuras en
What
el
I'm showing on
futuro.
my screen, and if
Lo
you're
que estoy
joining
mostrando
us by phone, I
en
do
mi
have an image up on my
pantalla
screen
es
that's just a
si
map that's showing
eso es un
where
mapa que
those different
muestra
sidewalk projects
dónde
are
están
currently
los
that
proyectos
are currently in
actualmente
design for the
en
neighborhood.
en
So you
diseño y
can see there's quite a few
construcción.
projects
Como
that
puede
are
ver,
in
hay
design.
bastantes
This is
proyectos
certainly not all of the
definitivamente
projects
no
that will
son
be
todos los
constructed in the
proyectos,
future, but these are the ones that are
pero
in
estos
design
son
right
los
now.
que
And
están siendo
then these
diseñados
projects will
ahorita
be
y estos
constructed, as I
proyectos van a
mentioned
ser construidos,
previously,
como mencioné
starting this
anteriormente,
year and then
comenzando
over the
este
next
año
several years.
y va a
There will
tomar
also be
varios años.
additional sidewalk projects that will be
También hay proyectos
identified,
adicionales
designed, and then
de
constructed
banquetas
through a
y
separate community
aceras
process
a
that
través de
will
un proceso
identify
separado de
where
la comunidad que
those
van a
future
identificar
sidewalk
dónde
improvements
van a
will
estar
happen.
esas mejoras
So we're going to pause there, and my colleague who is on the call
de
with
las
us, Karen
banquetas.
Good, knows a little
Bueno,
bit more
mientras mi colega
information than I do
tiene un
about the
poquito más
sidewalk program,
información
and so if
acerca
there's
del
any
programa
questions
de banquetas, si tiene
about that
Karen Good,
program, I'm going to turn
si
the
tiene
floor to
alguna
her
pregunta, le voy a ceder la palabra a
let her
ella
to answer.
y ella podrá
Thanks much,
responder sus
Riley.
preguntas. Muchas gracias, Riley.
I am looking at the chat
Estoy
and
viendo
trying to
chat
look at
y
10 things at
tratando de
once.
ver 10 cosas al mismo tiempo.
So we can maybe take off the mute
Quizás
button for a minute here
podemos
too, in case people want to just ask you a
eliminar
question. Would that
si
be
alguien
okay,
quiere hacer una
Karen?
pregunta directamente, está bien,
Absolutely.
Karen, por
Then we
supuesto.
don't have to worry about
De esa
watching the
manera no
chat.
tenemos que
If there
preocuparnos
are
de
any questions
estar
about the
viendo el chat.
sidewalk
Si hay
program,
alguna pregunta,
could you let
si
us
por
know? There's
favor nos
also,
pueden
if it's
decir si
easier for
tienen una
you
pregunta, si es fácil para
to jump and you
ustedes
want to ask a question,
y
there
quieren hacer una
is
pregunta,
on
hay
the reaction button at the bottom of your screen.
en la
A
parte de
smiley face with a
reacción
plus, and there is a icon once you
hay
press
un
that button, a
icono que
raised
si
hand.
ustedes presionen pueden
You'd
levantar
like
la
to,
mano de esa manera.
if you'd like to do it that way, or
En
else
la
you can just
parte
speak up.
posterior
So
derecha, donde
Katie has
dice
a great
reactions,
question. I
pueden
was just going to ask
levantar
Riley,
la
could you
mano.
go
Tengo una
back to that
pregunta.
map
¿Puedes
of the
regresar a ese
projects?
mapa
I think
de
that'll
los
be
proyectos? Eso
helpful for
sería
folks
muy útil para las
with
personas
to ask their questions.
para que puedan hacer sus
Thank you.
preguntas.
I
Gracias.
have a question.
Yo
What
tengo una
are all
pregunta.
those numbers in blue?
¿Cuáles son
What do
esos
they mean?
números
Those are
en
just
azul?
different
¿Qué son esos?
segment numbers.
Esos son
that,
diferentes
so
números
for
de segmentos.
instance,
Por
sorry, I'm
ejemplo,
zooming in a little bit. I'm gonna
estoy
love seeing your
sacándome un
faces, but I'm gonna
poquito.
make your faces much
Voy a
smaller so I can
hacer
see the
sus
numbers
caras un
better.
poquito más
For
pequeñas
instance,
para que puedan verlos claramente.
number
Por
9
ejemplo, el número
is
9
a project along 44th
es un
by
proyecto en la
Fairview Elementary. Number
44 en
10 is the
Fairview,
Broadway
la
turn
escuela de
there. So they're
primaria
all just
Fairview.
different projects. Some
Son
of them are
diferentes
very short
proyectos, algunos
segments of
son
like a block or
segmentos
two.
muy
These are
breves, como de una
gaps.
cuadra o
So,
dos, donde hay
for instance,
brechas.
2 is on 44th between Delaware.
2 es en la 44 entre Delaware
15 is
y la
on
15.
43rd,
La
etc.
15 está en la
Those are
43.
just different tiny little
Son
segments.
diferentes segmentos
And
que
now
están
the
en construcción.
portion,
Ahora la
it
porción
says that they're going to start
dice
next
que van
year.
a comenzar
However,
el próximo año.
what
Sin
the
embargo,
information that's been
la
told
información que
before
se nos ha
is
dicho anteriormente
51st.
es que la
is going to be like one of the
la
first
55
sidewalk
va a
segments.
ser
Is
una de las
that
primeras
true?
banquetas que van a
And
construir.
when
¿Es cierto eso?
is that
Y
true? That part, that
es
it's
cierto,
the
esa parte,
first that's going to be
que va
done.
a ser la primera que van a construir.
We've got a lot of moving parts.
Tenemos
All of
muchas
these are in the
partes que están
first
en pleno
round,
movimiento.
and will be
Todos estos
starting
están en la
in the
primera
next
ronda y van a
year.
comenzar el próximo año.
But we don't
Pero
have,
no
say an
tenemos,
exact date of
no tenemos
on
una fecha exacta
July 15th, X will
del
start.
15
We're still working through
de
that, and
julio,
as we
pues
know
todavía
more
estamos trabajando en
information
eso y
on when
conforme
51st
obtenemos
will
más
start up,
información de cuándo va a
we'll
comenzar
reach
la
out with more exact
51,
information.
yo
next year means
voy a comunicarme con
2022?
más información. Entonces, el
Or
próximo
do
año
you mean
estamos
this
hablando de
year,
2022
2021?
o comenzar este año en 2021.
So by and large, they'll be starting
Bueno,
within the next year. Some are next year,
la
some
mayoría
are still in
van a comenzar
2021.
el
And as I
próximo
said, as we have more
año,
exact
en
information,
2022.
we
Algunos
will
van a
come
comenzar en
out
2021 y
with
cuando
that,
tengamos más
but
información más
a
exacta vamos a
lot of them will
anunciar
be
eso. Muchos de
starting,
ellos
will
van
actually
a
go into construction
comenzar
in
a ser
2022. But
construidos
as
en
we have more
2022.
information,
Pero
we'll get that to
cuando
you.
tengamos
If we
más
had
información,
that
les vamos
now,
a dar esa
we'd
información.
have a
Cuando
schedule
tengamos eso
slide
ahorita,
here with,
tenemos
Project
un
23
horario ahorita con
from
el proyecto
51st
número
from here to
23 de la
here, anticipated start time.
53.
We just, we're not there quite yet.
No estamos ahí todavía, pues.
Okay, and are
Muy bien.
these all the sidewalks
Y
then
estos
that
son
will
todas
be
las
done
banquetas
in
entonces que se
Globeville
van a hacer en
with the bond
Globeville
money, knowing
con el
that some
dinero
of
del
that bond
bono,
money
sabiendo que
is
parte de
supposed
ese
to go
dinero
to
del bono
Elyria
se
Swansea
supone que
also?
va a Elyria
Not
Swansea
at all.
también.
If you
No del
see
todo.
on the slide, additional projects
Si
will be
puedes ver en la
identified and
diapositiva, puedes
designed. And
identificar el
this
diseño.
is a clip of a much
Este es
larger map that has
una
additional
sección de un
projects that's
mapa mucho
focused.
más grande.
This is a clip that
Este
shows
es
the Washington
solo una
area and
sección
focuses
que
in
encuentra
here.
el área de
We do have
Washington.
additional segments along
Tenemos segmentos adicionales
52nd between.
en la 52
I
entre,
could tell you so many other
puedo decirlo,
tiny little
tantos
segments, but
otros
this is
segmentos
part
más
of a
pequeños,
much larger map that
pero
includes
esto es parte de
Elyria
un
and
mapa mucho más
Swansea,
grande que
not
incluye a
just the
Elyria
Globeville
y a
area,
Swansea, no solamente
and
el área de
across
Globeville.
board we'll be doing
Y
more
también vamos
focused
a hacer
outreach in these areas,
más
and there are
alcance
opportunities
enfocado en
to
esas y
identify additional
oportunidades para
sidewalk
identificar
segments.
diferentes
Okay, I think,
segmentos de
you
banquetas.
know,
Yo creo
and other
que
people in the community may want to speak up about this.
otra de la
At
gente
the
quizás quieran
last
decir algo sobre
meeting,
esto. Pues en la
what
última
we asked
reunión,
for is the
lo que
comprehensive
hablamos acerca
overview.
de
So I
una
think, you know, it
perspectiva
would be
más amplia.
great. We've
Es que
got
sería
that bond
magnífico
money to
que
show the
seguimos ese dinero
community
de el
this
bono.
is all that's going to
Esto es
be,
todo lo
you know, the
que,
comprehensive view of
esta es
these are
la
the
perspectiva
sidewalks that are going to get done.
más
And
amplia, pues
also
estas
to
son
be responsive to the
las banquetas
community
que se van a llevar a
with,
cabo y también la
you know,
respuesta
with
de la
some
comunidad con
project
respecto
timelines.
a
So,
con algunas
you know, I'm
proyecciones de la comunidad.
I'm speaking as,
Estoy
you know, a
hablando
business person,
como
and
una
of course,
persona que
these
es dueña de un
sidewalks really
negocio
need to be
y
put in
por
the
supuesto
residential
que
areas.
estas banquetas
So
tienen que ser
I,
construidas en el
That's
área
great
residencial.
feedback, Nancy, and
Eso es
that's something that we are working on,
muy buena,
and we'll be
un buen
continuing to
comentario, es algo que
communicate
estamos
about. We
trabajando
are
y vamos a continuar
hoping to
continuando
get something in the council
comunicándonos
newsletter
sobre esto.
in
Vamos a publicar en
the
el boletín
next couple
del
weeks. That
consejo en
will
las
be
próximas
that
2 semanas.
larger, you know, that larger map
Que
that
va a ser
shows a bit
ese
more,
mapa
and we're
más
still
amplio,
working
más
on
grande que
those
todavía, en el que
details,
todavía
such as
estamos trabajando en esos
timelines and what
detalles
have you.
como
This is part of a
la,
continuing conversation,
la
and really do appreciate your feedback, 'cause those
cronograma
are great.
great.
o la
Because it
cronología
is
de
really
cuándo se van a llevar a cabo
critical, you
estos
know, because
proyectos.
we,
Sí, porque esto es
of
crítico
course,
realmente.
you know,
Por
keep hearing
supuesto,
about the sidewalks,
escuchamos sobre
and
las
if
banquetas y
people
las
start
banquetas y la
seeing
gente comienzan
construction
a ver
related
construcción
for
relacionada
4 years, okay, now,
a
but
decir que
we
está atrasada
see
por 4 años,
improvements
pues
being
comienza a haber
related
mejoras
to the National
que
Western Center
están
and
todas
not
relacionadas al
flowing
Centro National
into
Western
the
y no están
neighborhoods.
llegando a los
That
vecindarios,
is
pues
very problematic.
eso es muy problemático.
Absolutely agree, and this is
Okay.
Estoy completamente de acuerdo.
It's something that's really
Esto es algo que es
challenging. We wish that
es
you
un
know you could
desafío.
identify a sidewalk
Esperamos que
and go
pudimos
in the next
identificar
week and
una
just
cuadra y poder ir la
pour a
próxima semana
sidewalk and
y poner
curb
una
and gutter and drainage
banqueta
and just
y ya,
boom, done.
y terminarlo, pues,
Unfortunately,
pero
it's
desafortunadamente
this is something I say a lot. If the
Esto es algo que digo,
sidewalks
si
were
las
easy
banquetas
in these
fueran
areas,
fácil en estas
we
áreas,
might not have these gaps.
quizás no tendríamos
As we dive
estas
into
brechas.
these,
Pues,
there are
es
a lot
cuando
of
nos
details
ponemos,
that
hay
need to be worked
muchos
through, and
detalles
it's
que
not as
necesitan
easy as
ser
we'd like to put
organizados
sidewalks
y no
in,
es tan
but we
fácil como
need to do
quisiéramos
it
que fuera, pero
appropriately
necesitamos
so that we're
hacerlo de manera
coordinating with the
apropiada.
property owners and
Estamos
making sure that people
coordinando
have
con,
access and
con
that
los
we're
dueños de
not putting a
propiedades,
sidewalk in and
diferentes
suddenly
accesos. No
say
podemos
like
decir
flooding
una
somebody's
cuneta,
yard when it
bueno, o
rains. Like,
vamos a inundar
that's
el
not
patio
helping
de una
folks. So we
persona.
have to
Pues
take
eso no ayuda a
time
las
to do it
personas. Así que
right
tenemos que
and make sure we're
tomarnos el tiempo
communicating
de
with
hacerlo
people, and
correctamente y
we're
estamos
working on
comunicándonos
that.
debidamente con todas las
And we'll
personas
be continuing to go out
y estamos
and go out to
coordinando
the
eso y vamos a
community more
continuar
information as we have it.
I'd like to
comunicándonos
open
con
it
la
up to
comunidad.
some.
Me
Nancy, would
gustaría
that be all
abrir
right if
la
we open it up?
oportunidad.
Yes,
Está
I'm
bien si
finished.
abrimos a
Thank you.
diferentes personas.
Okay,
Sí,
thanks,
yo había
Nancy. Those are
terminado.
great
Gracias.
questions.
Ah,
Are there
gracias,
any-
Nancy. Eso es muy bueno.
Hi.
Karen,
Hi.
hola.
It's been a long time.
Ha sido mucho tiempo.
Your third bullet talks about
Que
additional sidewalks and a
en
separate
el tercer
process.
párrafo hablas
Will the
acerca de un
neighborhood have
proceso,
an opportunity to
un
identify
proceso separado. Y el vecindario va a poder
sidewalks that they would like to see
identificar
done
las
through this
banquetas que les
process?
gustaría
Absolutely, and
ver que
that's
se
something
construya.
I
Sí,
was
pues
alluding to a little bit
definitivamente.
before. We're hoping to get some
Es
information
algo que
in the
estaba
council
mencionando
newsletter
anteriormente.
and
Queremos
have some interactive
publicar
opportunities for
información
people to say,
en el
hey,
boletín informativo del
great that you're doing
consejo,
these sidewalks,
pero
but
y ustedes tienen la
you're
oportunidad de
missing
decir,
this one, this
magnífico
one,
que están
this
haciendo
one,
estas
and
banquetas, pero les
those are
hace
really
falta esta,
critical
esta,
to
esta y esta.
get to the
Mire,
rec
eso es lo
center,
que
to get
queremos.
to
Queremos, porque
my
no puedo
child's
llegar al
school,
centro
to get to my
recreativo,
bus
porque
stop.
no puedo
So
llegar a la
that's
escuela, porque
something
no puedo
that
llegar a
we're
la parada
working on
de
that. We
mi
want to make sure
autobús.
that that
Es decir,
outreach
queremos
is
asegurarnos de que ese
something that
alcance
is accessible to everyone, and
comunitario
that's
es algo
something that
que es
we would
accesible para
certainly
todo el
reach out
mundo y
to
es algo
folks in this
que
group to
queremos
say,
que todas
okay,
las
we have
personas
this
en este
information
grupo
now,
tengan esta
please
información.
push
Así es que
this to
por
your
favor
networks.
mencione esto
Please, please
infórmenle
make
a su
sure
red,
everyone that you're
asegúrense
in
de que la
touch with
gente
has
sepa que están en
the
contacto
ability
con
to
las
access
personas,
this information.
que
So,
las personas tienen
absolutely.
acceso a esa
Katie?
información. Katie.
Hey, thanks.
Sí,
Before
gracias.
the pandemic, I walked
Antes
the
de la
light rail a lot from my
pandemia,
house, so I'm really
yo
excited
iba
to see, I
mucho,
think, in the
pues
number
yo caminaba
2
mucho al tren
area,
ligero en mi
and
casa, así que
am
estoy
kind of
emocionada de
squinting to
ver
see the
que
map, but
están
does that
ampliando esto, pues tengo
kind
dificultad
of
viendo el
complete
mapa,
the
pero
whole
eso
connection
completa pues toda la
between,
conexión
where Garden Place
entre
Elementary
donde
is and up
está
to the
la
light
escuela
rail?
primaria Garden
Yeah, that's the idea. So
y hasta
there
donde
are
está
a
el
lot of
ferrocarril.
missing gaps, as
Sí,
you
esa
can
es la idea.
see.
Como pueden ver, hay
Number
muchas
9,
lagunas, hay muchas brechas, como puede ver
there,
el número
there's a
9
lot
ahí. Hay
missing there, and then
mucho que falta ahí.
the goat trail going up to that
Y
44th
también
bridge, that will be formalized.
el
So it will no
sendero
longer,
goat
having to
o
crawl under the
chivo, del
fence and
chivo,
up to the sidewalk.
no van a tener
And we're
que
working on
tener
making
que
sure that
saltarse la
that
cerca para
is
poder
not
llegar a la
just
banqueta. No, tenemos que asegurarnos de que por lo menos eso
and
no sea
landings,
pues
but also a means for you to walk a bike up that with the
no
runnels
sea
or
difícil, pues
something
que
that
la
accommodates
gente tenga la
bikes, as
oportunidad de
well as
poder
a loop
conectarse,
around
que
for
algo
those
que
that
sea posible
want to go
tanto para
around and
bicicletas
up.
como para
If somebody's
peatones,
looking for extra
de poder
steps or something
conectarse,
for their
pues alguien
day,
está
for
buscando
their health
pues
app. So
completar
yes, that
sus
along with work
pasos
on the other side of the bridge,
para
number
completar los
2,
pasos en su app.
and then it gives you some opportunities,
Y
whether
les da
you want to continue on
oportunidades
44th
de si quieren
or
continuar en la
pop over to
44 o
43rd.
pasar
So
hasta la
we're working on that.
43.
And
Estamos trabajando en eso.
so we'll
Entonces, pues
Yeah,
vamos
so
a...
exciting.
getting your
Thank you.
feedback.
Sí,
Let's take one last question
realmente
on
me
sidewalks
entusiasma
and
mucho
we'll
que
move
estén
on.
pasando.
Are there
Tomaremos
any other
una
questions
pregunta
about
más sobre
sidewalks?
las banquetas. ¿Alguna otra pregunta
I
sobre
have
las
a
banquetas?
question.
Sí, yo tengo una pregunta.
Yeah.
Sí,
To
dime, Geo.
me, it's
Para
so
mí,
I'm thinking about the
estoy
last
pensando
meeting.
pues en la última
I think it
reunión.
was the 51st
Creo que fue en
feasibility,
la
and we were
presentación
chatting.
sobre la visibilidad de
And
la 51 y
I
estamos conversando
honestly
y yo
believe the
honestamente
best
creo
way
que la
for
mejor
any
manera
of you who are
de
making these
cualquiera de ustedes
decisions
que estén
for
tomando
our
estas
neighborhood
decisiones para nuestros
is to come
vecindarios
down
es
and
de
take a
venir
walking tour with us
y caminar con
and see what
nosotros
it's really
y
like
ver lo
to
que
try to get
realmente
to
significa,
even
pues tratar
to
de llegar a, digamos,
the light rail or to the
hasta
rail,
el tren
the G line.
ligero.
So my grandson and I took a
Mi
walk
nieto y yo nos
we
fuimos
took the G line
caminando
down to downtown on Saturday
No,
And
fuimos
we had to cross so many
Delta
streets just to try to be on
el
a
sábado.
sidewalk.
Tuvimos que cruzar
And
tantas calles solamente para poder estar en una
until you really
banqueta,
come
hasta
here
que realmente
and
que
cross
llegas
these
aquí y,
streets,
cruzas
you know, we
estas
have no
calles,
lines on our
realmente no
crosswalks. We
tenemos,
have no
no tenemos
slowdown
línea, no
signs, no
tenemos
kids
unos
crossing.
cruces, no hay
We have
no
none
hay
of that here in Globeville. So I would love to invite
no hay
you,
señalética,
Karen,
no hay
and anyone
rótulos, no
else on this
hay
call,
nada de eso
to
existe
come
en nuestro
down and
vecindario. Pues yo
let's
quiero
just
que la
take a
gente
walk.
venga aquí
And so
y que
you can
caminen
really
con
see how
nosotros
difficult
para que
it
vean
is to
realmente
get
lo
around here.
difícil que es
That was my first comment,
aquí
and then just
conectarse.
one
Este es
more.
mi
I'm
primer
so sorry.
comentario.
You also said that
También dijiste
you gave us the option on
nos
that last
diste la
phone call
opción en la
to say,
última
hey, if
llamada
we
de
don't want
decir, oye, si no
any
queremos
sidewalks
ninguna de
along
las
51st right
banquetas en la
now,
51 ahorita,
then we can focus on
bueno,
what we
entonces
need in
podemos
Globeville.
empecar en lo que
How
necesitamos
true
en
is that
Globeville.
statement?
Bueno, ¿hasta qué punto es
It's
cierta
totally
esa
true. And it
declaración?
was just
Es
to be clear for
verdadera.
everyone, it was the
Para que estemos
50-second
claros, en
feasibility
la
study.
52, el estudio de
And that
de la
is off the
viabilidad
map here.
de la
But
52, y eso no está en
it's
el
true.
mapa aquí.
The thing is that we do have
Lo
a
cierto
lot
es
of
que
funds and we
tenemos
don't,
muchos
we have
fondos
the ability to put
y
a
tenemos la
heck of a lot of
habilidad de
sidewalks in.
poner
So we're
muchas
not in a
banquetas
place where we
aquí. No
have to
estamos en un lugar
exclude
en
an
que
area
tenemos
from
que excluir un
sidewalks
área
in order
de
to
banqueta
get
para
sidewalks
poder,
someplace else.
poder
There
tener
really
banquetas
are,
en otras
there's
partes.
really a pretty significant
Realmente
opportunity to
pues hay
add sidewalks,
oportunidades muy
as you can see
significativas de agregar
from
banquetas ahorita.
from
Como
this
pueden
map. We're
ver,
doing a
en
lot
base a lo que está
of
en este mapa, estamos haciendo mucho
investment in sidewalks in the area,
estamos
and some of
invirtiendo
the
mucho pues
areas
en las
that
banquetas en el
might
área.
not
Algunas de
have
las áreas que quizás
sidewalks, maybe
no
because there
tengan
are
banquetas
other
porque
folks that are building
hay otras
sidewalks.
personas que te están
And
construyendo
Gail, we can
banquetas.
talk a little bit more
Entonces, que
offline
podemos
about
hablar
a
más
tour of
de
the
esto,
area.
después de eso, sobre
We have done
una
walking
gira del
tours
área. Hemos
in the
caminado por esa
neighborhood
área en el
and
vecindario
are pretty familiar with
y estamos
the
bastante familiarizados
missing
pues
sidewalk areas, but
el área donde
we
faltan
can chat
banquetas,
offline
pero
about that,
podemos
because Catherine,
hablar
I think we
más
do
sobre eso
need
porque
We need to move
Catherine
on. All
necesitamos
really great questions,
proceder.
and I know
Todos son
that
magníficas preguntas y
we'll
yo sé que
continue to
vamos a
update you
continuar
within the CAG
dándoles
meetings and
informes
also with Karen.
sobre
I'm
esto.
going to encourage us to move
También voy
on
a
to the
invitarlos a
next
todos a que pasemos
portion
a
of our meeting.
la próxima
But if
pregunta
you
en
do
nuestra
have
reunión.
other questions,
Pero si
please
tienen
use the
alguna otra
chat
pregunta, por
function to
favor, usen la
help us
función del
make sure
chat
that we
para
catch your
asegurarnos de
questions
que
and
podemos
that we can get back to you.
responder sus preguntas.
So Riley, back to you.
Thanks,
Riley,
Catherine.
de nuevo, gracias,
So now
Catherine.
we're going to talk
Bueno,
about
ahora vamos a
3
hablar
different
acerca de
opportunities to
3
make it
oportunidades
easier to
diferentes de
travel
hacerlo más
by
fácil
bicycle in the Globeville
para
neighborhood. And so I'm
desplazarse
going to
por
talk
bicicleta
about
en
those
el
next.
vecindario de Globeville. Y
But
vamos a hablar
first,
de
I
eso
want to go
ahorita.
back a little bit
Primero,
and
quiero
talk
regresar
about
un
the
poquito a
Globeville
hablar
neighborhood
acerca
plan.
del plan
And
del
this plan, when it
vecindario
was
de
done,
Globeville.
I know a lot of you are familiar with.
Muchos de
There was
ustedes están
section in
familiarizados
it
con
that
ese
talked
plan.
about
Se
how we
hizo
can
un plan
improve
acerca de cómo
connectivity. So
podíamos
in other words, making the
mejorar la
streets more
conectividad,
connected
tener
and making them
que las
safer.
calles
And
sean más
there
útiles para
was a
conectar
lot of different
y
recommendations
de
that
un
were
lugar a otro.
related
Había
to
muchas
transit.
recomendaciones que
Then
fueron
there
hechas
was
en relación al
recommendations
transporte
related
público y
to
recomendaciones
improving
hechas acerca
sidewalks
de mejorar las
and making
banquetas
it easier to get across the street.
y hacerlo más
And
fácil
then there was also
y
some
facilitar el proceso de cruzar la
recommendations that were
calle, pues,
related
y algunas
to
recomendaciones
adding bikeways.
relacionadas a
So the
de
bikeways that I'm going to
agregar
talk about are
ciclovías, y las
bikeways that were
ciclovías de las que voy a
identified
hablar
from the
que fueron
Globeville neighborhood
identificadas
plan.
en el vecindario
And so I just wanted to provide
en
that
el plan del
context.
vecindario de Globeville. Solo quería
So
darles un
in
poquito de
particular, there's
contexto.
3
En
projects that
particular,
we're going
hay
to talk
3
about. We'll
proyectos de
start
los que
with the
vamos a hablar.
North
Vamos a
Lincoln Street
comenzar
neighborhood bikeway.
con
And then we'll
la
talk about East
ciclovía del
51st.
norte
And
del
then finally,
vecindario.
we'll
Vamos a comenzar
wrap up with
al
East
este de la
45th.
51 y vamos a terminar
Before we get
con la
to the neighborhood bikeway, I
45
wanted to say that
este. Antes de
all
comenzar
3 of
con
these
las
projects
ciclovías,
are
estos
in
3
the very
proyectos
beginning stages of
están en
planning.
las etapas
And so what we're looking for
temprana del
from you
proyecto. Estamos
is
buscando
input on
es
the
que nos den
projects.
sus
And we want to
opiniones
hear
sobre
things like
estos
how
proyectos.
where can we make it easier to cross the
¿Dónde
street?
podemos
Where is it
facilitar que se
hard
pueda cruzar la
to
calle?
see getting across the street?
¿Dónde tienen
And how can
dificultades
we
cruzando
improve
la
the
calle?
street to
¿Cómo
make it more
podemos mejorar
comfortable?
esta calle para
Those are the
hacerla más
kinds of
cómoda?
questions that we're
Esas
going
son
to
la
be
clase de
asking.
preguntas que vamos a
A
plantear.
little bit later on, we're going
Y
to
un
be
poquito
talking
más
about a
adelante vamos a hablar
survey,
acerca
and that's where we'll be
de una
collecting a lot of
encuesta
that information. And that
y vamos a
survey
recolectar mucha de esa
will
información.
is
Y en
what
esa
will
propuesta
help
es lo
us to
que
inform
nos
what the
va a
designs look like
ayudar
for these particular
acerca
projects.
del
So for
diseño de lo
Lincoln
que estamos,
Street, that's the
lo
first one
que
that we're going to
tenemos.
start off with. And
El
I'm
primero
going
que
to
vamos a comenzar es
actually
con la
hand that
calle
off to
Lincoln.
Charlie, who's going to
Y
explain a
le
little
voy
bit
a
more
ceder la
about this
palabra a
particular
Charlie, que va a
project.
hablar un poquito más acerca de este
Great. Thank you,
proyecto.
Riley. Just to be
Gracias, Riley.
clear,
Solamente para estar
for
claros,
everyone, we
para
will
todo el
stop. So
mundo,
we've got
vamos
3
a
different
comenzar. Tenemos
projects that we're going to talk
proyectos
about. We're going to
diferentes de los que
stop
vamos a hablar.
after
Vamos
every
a
single
parar
one
después
to
de cada
have
uno de ellos
Q&A. So that
para
way,
tener preguntas y
it makes it a
respuestas,
little easier for
porque
everyone
eso
to
lo va a hacer un
follow.
poquito más fácil para que todo
So
el
as
mundo
Riley
le dé
mentioned,
seguimiento. Pues
the first
como
project
Riley
that
mencionó,
I
el
will
primer
describe
proyecto,
is
el
the
que
Lincoln
vamos a
Street
describir
Neighborhood
acerca de la
Bikeway.
calle es
The
la
limits of
ciclovía de
this
la calle
are, Riley's
Lincoln.
pointing them out, from 51st Avenue
Bueno, los
on the
límites
north
son de
to
la,
44th Avenue on the
de la
south.
avenida 51 hasta
As
la
Riley
avenida
mentioned, this
44.
is a
Como Riley
project that
mencionó,
has
este
been
es un
talked about
proyecto
for a long
que se ha
time,
discutido por mucho
including in the
tiempo,
Globeville neighborhood
incluyendo
plan, as
en
well
el plan
as
del vecindario
the
de Globeville,
citywide
así como
plans
el plan
for bicycling, which
maestro
is
de toda
called
la
Denver
ciudad
Moves Bicycles.
para
And
todas las
this project
ciclovías,
in particular
ferrocarriles,
has
que se llama Denver
funding
Moves,
to be
y
implemented
esto tiene financiamiento
via
para ser
the bond.
implementado por vía del el
So
bono.
the map on the right, for those of you
El
on the
mapa a
phone,
mano
is just showing the
derecha,
project
como pueden ver,
limits
los
and
límites del
the
proyecto
ways that it
y
connects to
las
other
maneras en
aspects
que
of
se
the
conecta a
transportation
otros
system.
aspectos del
And
sistema de
I'll go
transporte.
through a couple slides
Voy
here
a pasar por un
on
par de
neighborhood
diapositivas
bikeways and what they are
sobre
and
ciclovías en el
what
vecindario
they
de lo
might
que
look like,
son.
and then get into some of the
Y
opportunity for feedback. So a neighborhood bikeway is really a street where it has low traffic volume. There's not many cars on it, and where we try to really decrease the speed that people drive at to make it a better environment for all people using the street. So that does include people biking, but it also includes people walking, people that are trying to get to transit. And we often hear that, you know, for people driving, they sometimes appreciate the slower speeds too, especially if they're trying to turn on or off the street. Some of the things that we try to do involve improving visibility for everyone so that everyone can see each other better. I mentioned treatments to discourage speeding. In some cases, we might consider treatments that would lower the amount of traffic actually on the street. In the case of Lincoln, it has transit operating on it, and the volumes are already quite low, so I'm not sure that will be necessary. But by keeping the speed low, keeping the volume low, we're able to make it a comfortable street while maintaining parking on the corridor, and overall, you know, improving and emphasizing safety for all users. Just to see a few pictures of what some of the treatments could look like and some examples. Wayfinding signage so that people know how to navigate the street and connect to other facilities that are emphasized for walking and biking. Some of that is also done with pavement markings. At intersections, we may explore treatments like curb extensions to shorten the distance that people need to cross the street, or different traffic calming devices. So these are words we use in the industry of different tools we use to reduce travel speeds on streets. And then different ways of really making sure that we're serving local traffic, such as the one on the picture on the bottom right, about making crossings safer for people on the street. See some questions here, and I will open it to Catherine to help me answer those once we get to the end here. So actually, Riley, can you back? Yeah, thank you. So we've done a little bit of data collection here just to inform our conversation with you all. So we've studied the crash history on the corridor. There have been some crashes that have involved people walking. There have been some crashes that have resulted in serious injuries. Some of the speeds on the corridor by people driving are fairly high, such as, I'll show exactly where we collected that data, but in excess of 30 miles an hour in some locations. And looking at different feedback that the city's gotten over time, a lot of the public feedback is related to maintenance of the corridor and locations that needed to get maintenance attention of some form. So to go through just some of the data that we've mapped here, this is a map that shows the Lincoln Street corridor highlighted in yellow, and the locations where crashes have happened, as well as the number of crashes that have happened at those locations. So the bigger the circle, the more crashes. And we've identified the locations where those crashes resulted in a serious injury or where they involved a person walking. For those of you on the phone, the locations with serious injuries were Lincoln Street at 44th and 48th and 51st. And then the pedestrian crashes occurred at 48th Avenue and at 51st Avenue. Otherwise, there's sort of a denser cluster of crashes, sort of on the intersections either side of I-70 at 45th Avenue or at 47th Avenue. I mentioned previously that we collected a little bit of data to understand the volume of traffic, so the number of cars on the corridor. And generally, the number of cars ranges from around 800 to around 1,300 vehicles per day. ADT that you see here, just average daily traffic. So that basically means, between 800 and 1,300 cars from, midnight on day one to midnight on day two. And the speeds generally in the 25 to 32 mile an hour range. We found them to be a little bit higher north of I-70. And that sort of speed is probably higher than most people are comfortable with on the corridor, especially if you're walking or traveling by bike. So timeline wise, this is the very beginning of us looking into this project and identifying kind of the future path for it. So we don't know what this is going to look like yet. We don't know all of the problems that we need to solve yet. We're really here this evening to introduce the project to you all and to take the opportunity to listen to problems that exist on the street. Because neighborhood bikeway projects are intended to improve conditions for all users of the street, people walking, people biking, people driving, people getting to transit. We're really interested to hear all of the issues that exist on Lincoln Street so that we can find ways of exploring whether or not, or exploring how to resolve those problems. And we don't expect to have a final design before the summer or fall of this year. And we'll be back with this group based on what we hear tonight and how we're able to incorporate that feedback into a design periodically throughout the year before we get to a design for the corridor. So I've got just a couple more slides here. So we're really hoping to hear input from you all on ways that we can improve the street and specific problems that you're experiencing on the street. The two ways of doing that are via our Q&A tonight. And then on the next slide, Riley, we have a survey for all of the projects that we're talking about tonight. The links are shown on the slides here. And I believe they're being entered into the chat right now so that you can click on them if you want to. It'll be open for the next few weeks here. And the links, I'll do the English version and Francisco can do the Spanish version. It's bit.ly/GES bikeways. All of the feedback we get tonight and all the feedback we get on the survey, we will be using as we move forward. So that's everything I had to introduce the project to you all, and I'll hand it over to Catherine to facilitate our Q&A. Oh, Catherine, you're on mute.
Yeah, no, I have it. Yeah. Thank you. So this is on the Lincoln Street project. So the questions that, Liz, I don't know if maybe you want to go through those questions again. They're in the chat, but Liz, if you could just remember or remind everybody, remember me, if you could remind everybody what those questions are and the feedback that we're asking about the Lincoln Street section.
Sure. So I think the question really was about how, what sort of input the Dottie team is looking to receive. Riley had mentioned some questions. And it's the answers to that are we really want to know where it's hard for you to cross, where you see opportunities to have the sidewalk network improve. And then also any safety issues.
Thank you for being administrator.
So can I remind everybody to mute if you're not speaking, because we're getting some background noise.
So yeah, and anywhere that you are experiencing crossing difficulties or have a hard time being seen by cars, really in any input that you see in terms of safety or improvements, we really want to know about.
So LJ?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for doing this project. I live right at the intersection of 47th and Lincoln Street, and all of the problems that you identified, I very personally associate with, and I'm really grateful to hear that the city has a dedicated project to try to slow down traffic and improve the safety. Those are all things that'll bring great benefits to the neighborhood. One thing I did want to address, or maybe just the two things. So here on Lincoln Street at 47th, we see quite a bit of industrial traffic. So this would be, heavy vehicles that I think are going between warehouses or coming up from the Burlington Northern Yard at 44th Street heading north. And really that traffic should be on Washington Street. And I'm hoping quite a bit of the improvements that you're talking about would discourage those heavier vehicles from using these residential streets to go north and south. The other thing that I wanted to point out is quite a bit of the speeding traffic we see here is heading east and westbound on 47th Street. So I know the focus is really on the Lincoln Street traffic, but I'm hoping you can do something at that four-way stop to discourage people in all directions of the intersection from speeding and from blowing through the stop signs. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, LJ, for those comments. Yeah, I think I've understood them. I'm not sure I have an answer for them, but those are things that we can definitely investigate as a part of this process. And that's exactly the sort of feedback that we're looking for now, so that we can see if we can come up with solutions to some of those issues.
We have a question from Vernon about whether a traffic study was done for Lincoln Street, and if so, when it was done.
So I don't know if there's a previous traffic study that has been done on Lincoln Street, but we will be doing things akin to a traffic study as a part of this project, understanding, some of the volume data that we've already collected, some of the speed data that would commonly be in a traffic study. Any changes that we propose for the corridor, we will be studying those to understand the effects of those changes on traffic and be reporting those out to you all as we navigate the process over the next several months.
Are there other questions about the Lincoln Street section?
Catherine, there's one additional question put in the chat just before Vernon, if I can tackle it.
Okay, sure, please.
Sure, yep. So the question asks how bike lanes along Lincoln Street will impact parking for homeowners and renters, and that's an issue and a concern that has come up in the past. And I believe the abbreviation there is including during the Washington Street study. And what are we going to do about parking on the corridor to not impact residents and tenants? So the neighborhood bikeway, Riley, if you can maybe go back one more. Yeah, this is a good example, or maybe go down one more, Riley, if you could, please. So this picture on the bottom left is a good example. So the neighborhood bikeway identified for the street is different from a bike lane. There's not going to be a delineated or dedicated space for people biking. They will share the travel lane with people driving, and provided that we can get the driving speeds sufficiently low. What that means is that there's not expected to be a significant change in the parking on Lincoln Street. So we expect that parking will still be on both sides. Sometimes through these processes, we do hear from people that they have a hard time or feel unsafe crossing the street or turning onto or off of the street because they can't see. And sometimes parked cars are what prevents them from seeing. So sometimes near intersections, we may look at prohibiting parking close to the intersection, but that would be a space here and there, not like a wholesale removal of parking by any means. And those are the sorts of details that we will bring back to this group once we know more about the project later this year.
Katie?
Hey there, thanks. I want to echo what LJ was saying about the intersection of 47th and Lincoln. I agree that that's a problematic area. And then the other area that I want to highlight that could really use some solutions is the section of Lincoln that goes underneath I-70, including both of the frontage roads on the sides. And so similar to that 47th challenge, I know this this project is focused on Lincoln. A lot of being safe on Lincoln has to do with how cars come in and out of that frontage road and how fast they're going and what they can see, and also what I can see as I walk my dog and ride a bike under here most frequently. So that's my biggest experience, but have also driven a car under there too. And it's hard to see where everyone is.
Duly noted. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. One last question, and then just to remind you that there is a survey that, and we're going to put that link in the chat as well. So there's an opportunity not only tonight, but also in completing the survey. It's open till March the 12th. Okay, so I don't see any more questions. And so Riley, do you want to move on?
That sounds good. Thanks again, Catherine. So the next project that I'm going to talk about is on East 51st. And this project looks a little bit different than the neighborhood bikeway that we talked about before. So this project again is on East 51st between North Broadway and North Washington Street. And the reason why we're looking at a project here is because the street is scheduled to be repaved in 2021, so later this summer. And East 51st was recommended as a bike lane, both in the Globeville neighborhood plan and also in the Denver Moves bicycles plan. And so because the street is being repaved, that means that they're going to put down fresh pavement and then have to restripe and paint all of the lane markings that are present on the street. That's an opportunity for us to install the bikeway. And so some of the benefits of having a bikeway on the street are that it connects a lot of the different destinations that are on either end of the street, whether that be the North Lincoln Street neighborhood bikeway or the 5090 Broadway Recreation Center. Those are destinations that this project could connect. And it will connect into the improvements that are currently in the planning process on 51st that are east of Washington. So that's another potential benefit, and it's helping to, again, increase overall connectivity in the neighborhood and make it easier to get around. The image that's on the bottom of my screen is a picture of what a striped bike lane looks like. So you've probably seen these around different places in Denver. And so again, when we go to repave the street, it's an opportunity to paint a bike lane that looks similar to that. So this is just the speed or some of the information before Dottie designs or starts the planning process for any project. We typically collect a lot of data just to help inform what some of the inform what the existing conditions look like. But again, as you are the community that lives here and knows these streets best, the most important piece of data that we can collect is really your input. And that is what's most important. So we look at things like crashes, we look at things like speeds, and then we look at what parking looks like and to see whether or not how it's being utilized. So we look at all of those different factors as we're thinking about the design of the project. So similar to this project, again, is in the very early stages. So what we're going to be asking for is on that same survey, there's also questions about East 51st. So that the input that you give will help inform what the design of that project looks like as well. And then we'll be coming back to you in April with a design that we can share, and we'll be able to get your feedback on the design of that project at that time. The goal for this project is to coordinate it with the paving season. And so typically paving in Denver starts in the early spring, and then it ends in the fall, depending on how the weather is. And so it's anticipated that that the street would be repaved during the summer, and then that the project would get installed during that time. So again, for this particular project, we have a survey that is asking questions that are related to 51st. So it's the same exact survey as the Lincoln Street Neighborhood Bikeway project. And again, that is bit.ly/GES Bikeways. And we'll be using that to gather your input about what's working on the corridor, what's not working, where you have concerns with speeding vehicles, where you might have concerns with crossing the street, both as a pedestrian or riding a bike. And something else that I just want to reiterate is that a lot of these projects, although we're designing bikeway improvements, we also, based on the feedback that we hear from the community, oftentimes are able to add in improvements that benefit all travel modes into the design. So with that, I'm going to pause there and see if there's any questions on this project.
Katie, do you still have your hand raised? Or is that from the last time?
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant to lower it.
Okay. Anybody else have questions about the East 51st section? We've just put the links in the chat, so that will be there again, reminding you that those links will allow you to maybe think a little bit more about this section and the Lincoln Street, and then third one that we'll be describing soon. Just to be, if you have additional comments, don't feel like you have to be rushed to do it tonight. That you can tonight provide comments as well as offer them during in the survey as you've had time to think a little bit more about it. And there is that other section of the survey that allows you to add in different comments, not just about the ones that we've asked specifically about. Any other comments, questions? Riley?
I had a quick, oh, sorry, Riley.
Go ahead, Gail. Go ahead. Sure.
Just a real quick question. Can we get this survey out to all of the residents along these paths, or even to the residents of Globeville? Is that possible?
Certainly, yeah, we can try our best to get that out to along the corridors. I might defer to Beth or Karen about the best way to do that, but that's something that we can look into.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Gail, we would love to do that. One of the things that we've been doing to get the word out on, oh, I'm so sorry. I had to start my video too, not just unmute myself. One of the things that we have been doing is coordinating with council office. So we certainly would do that. And we would really appreciate you all pushing these out, getting them, we'll get them to stakeholder lists that we have, and hope that folks can help push that out as well. So absolutely. And we really would appreciate your support in that as well.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. Great question. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Riley, we can move on to the next section.
All right. So the last project that I'm going to talk about, it says on my screen East 44th, East 45th, and East 46th. And that's because we don't actually know of what street there would be improvements on. And that's something that we want your feedback on. So East 45th, between basically the South Platte River Trail, all the way to where the East 44th overpass is, it has an existing bike lane that is currently, and that's shown in the Globeville neighborhood plan as well. And it has an existing bike lane that's shared between parked cars and the street. And so what we're trying to ask right now is how can we improve that street, or how can we improve a bike connection and make it so that it's a little bit more comfortable? We understand that the street has changed and that there's a lot of vehicles that travel on the street, and that if you're riding a bike, it might not be the most comfortable thing to share a street where right next to parked cars, right next to a really busy roadway. And so what we're trying to understand is how could we improve that street, or how could we improve a different street in the area that would make it so that it's feels more comfortable to ride a bike. And so what we're trying to do is figure out how we can connect to different destinations, including the rest of the neighborhood on the other side of the interstate highway, and how can we connect that to the South Platte River Trail, knowing that that's an important asset to the community as well. So what we've done, just similar to before, is we've looked at how 45th works today. So we've looked at how many crashes there are. We've looked at how fast vehicles travel on the street. And we've kind of, again, collected a lot of information just so that way we have an understanding of how the street is working. And this particular project, the reason why it's so short is, again, because we don't know where the future improvements will be at. What we're looking for in the survey is for people to be able to tell us where they'd like to ride or where they'd like to see bicycle improvements in the future. So in this particular section of the survey, those are exactly the kinds of questions that it asks, is kind of saying, would you rather see improvements on 45th, on 44th, or on 46th? So what we'll be able to do with that is take all of that feedback, and then we'll report back next time we meet, which is in April, where we'll be giving an update both on the Lincoln Street Neighborhood Bikeway. We'll be sharing what the designs look like for East 51st. And then we'll also be kind of sharing the results of the feedback that you've given tonight and on the survey about which street might be a preferred option to make it more comfortable to travel by bike in the future. So with that, I'm going to pause there in case there's any questions.
So this is sort of option 1, option 2, or option 3. So we'd love to have your feedback on those, and also, either tonight or through the survey. And Gail, to your question, this is really a great opportunity to get a lot more feedback if we can use your connections or to help us get out into the community, especially as we sort of have, this one seems to offer a lot of opportunity for input in terms of sort of which street would be more amenable to the community at large, and to our bicycle riders. So any questions, Katie?
Hi, thanks. I really appreciate this conversation, because I think while right now the bike lane is on 45th, it doesn't always work all that great. But from my perspective, I use the South Platte Trail really frequently. And I think that the bike and pedestrian thoroughfare should stay on 45th, that main street, for a variety of reasons. One, it is a main street corridor. There are storefront businesses there that I think benefit from having the slower traffic. I would like to ride by those kinds of things, and it feels more lively than 44th. You're kind of right up against the train tracks, and there's a lot of BNSF trucks that go up and down that road, and they go pretty fast. I know some changes are planned for sidewalks there that might change that, but personally, I feel less comfortable with the traffic from the train yard than what happens on 45th. And then 46th can be really icy and gets really dirty because of the highway. And so, and also can feel a little bit less safe because like riding or walking at night, there just aren't as many eyes over there and feels not as much a like part of the neighborhood. But in order to make 45th safe and usable, I think other traffic needs to be that's more appropriate for where there's less, you know, street level activity needs to be moved or rerouted, particularly big trucks. And then just, I like your term traffic calming, whatever can be done to kind of slow that down to a neighborhood speed.
Riley, will you do show us the cross section? Matthew would like to see the cross section again. And then we have a question on small business and rec centers as destinations. The 45th Avenue is a main street traditionally, and the Panaderia, Emmanuel, and the Global Rec Center, a couple of churches, etc. Is that, Matthew, is that the cross section you wanted?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Do you have any questions about that, Matthew? Or comments?
Hey, Catherine, I wanted to
Hi, Dorothy.
Hey. So hi, I'm Dorothy Leyva. I am the
Hola,
Tiny
mi
Home
nombre
Village
es
Manager for
Dorothy
Colorado Village
Leyva.
Collaborative.
Yo
I kind of
soy
wanted to
la
give a little bit
gerente
more input.
de,
So our lease is up in May
del
of
colaborativo para
2022.
los tiny
But
homes
one
y
of the
querían
things
pues
that
un,
we've
un
noticed
poco más de
in the
aporte
area,
para
especially along that 45th
2020-2022,
Avenue,
pero una
is
cosa que hemos notado sobre esa
again, I
avenida
like that whole term
45,
of the
me
calming
gusta todo
area
ese término de
there is not a lot
desacelerar
of
el
traffic there. A
tráfico, de
lot of
calmar el
cars
tráfico.
do
No hay mucho
speed and
tráfico ahí,
turn
pero
that
muchos de los
corner
carros van a
extremely fast. We've
excesiva
actually had a
velocidad
really bad
y dan esa
accident where a
vuelta
car
en la
turned
esquina.
the
Y
corner
de
from
hecho pasó un
45th
accidente
onto Pearl Street and crashed into the
muy malo
fence
en
on
la
the east side of Pearl.
45
And
y
we don't know
al
what's going
lado
to be there
oeste de
after
la
the village
Pearl. No
leaves in
sabemos
May
qué
of
va a haber ahí
2022,
después de
but there
que
is, there's residential
la
areas
vía
there
se
too. So
vaya,
it's
pero
a
hay
big
áreas
concern that
residenciales y
cars
nos
are
preocupa
speeding around
que
that
los
corner
carros
because there's
van
no
demasiado
sidewalks.
rápido
It's
porque no
just
hay
kind of an empty
banquetas y
lot
sencillamente
that's kind of back
es
there.
un
So that's
lote
a
vacío.
concern that
Esa
we
es una
definitely want
preocupación
to
que
bring up as
definitivamente
well
nosotros queremos plantear
to the attention of the city.
en la
Thank you,
ciudad.
Dorothy.
Ponga atención a eso.
Other questions or
¿Hay
comments
algunas otras
on
preguntas o
45th,
comentarios sobre
44th,
la
45th,
45,
46th?
la 44, la 46?
Okay, well, think a little
Muy
bit.
bien,
This would
pensemos un
be
poco,
really
pues esto va a
terrific
ser
if we could get a lot of input on
magnífico
this
si
particular
pudiéramos tener
bikeway.
comentarios sobre esto,
Again,
sobre
we'll
todo
show
pues sus
the,
ciclovías de nuevo.
there is the
Ahí está
link to the
el
survey.
enlace
You have again till March
bit.ly
12th to respond.
diagonal
If not for yourself,
GS
please share this link
ciclovías.
with your neighbors or your
Y
fellow bike
compartan
riders or
ese
residents.
enlace con sus
As much input
vecinos,
as we could get
con
on this would be
gente que
very,
ustedes
very helpful.
conocen que andan en bicicleta.
Riley, I do have a question for you
Riley, yo tengo una
about
pregunta para ti
the
sobre
choice to have a 10-foot
la opción
shared
que tienes
bike and parking lane. Is there
un
a particular
estacionamiento
trigger,
o
like a warrant
una ciclovía de
of the number of,
¿hay alguna
like the
manera, es
percentage of
decir,
parking
hay algo
utilization,
que
like a maximum
afecta, es decir,
percentage
hay
that
un
would be
porcentaje máximo de estacionamiento
appropriate for
que
this
sería
type of an
apropiado
arrangement?
para este
Given that,
tipo
if the
de
street was
organización de la
entirely parked
calle?
up,
Si
then
la
that's
calle estuviera
a lot of
completamente
risk
llena,
for being doored
pues
by
representa
a car
muchos
opening their
riesgos pues
door.
para la posibilidad de ser golpeado por
Yeah,
un
that's a great
vehículo.
question. So
Esta es una
typically
magnífica
in
pregunta.
the city, we're not
Típicamente en
doing
una
these
ciudad
types
no
of
estamos haciendo este tipo de
improvements where it's a shared
mejoras
parking lane
donde
and
se
cycling
comparte pues una ciclovía
anymore.
o
And
un
so
ciclocarril,
essentially,
perdón, con
when we
el
look at streets like this
vehículos
that have a lot of traffic,
estacionados.
and I think when we
Cuando vemos calles
analyzed
como
it,
esa que
there's
tienen
quite a bit
mucho
of
tráfico
traffic
y
that occurs
y
on the
analizamos
street
de que hay
every day.
bastante
And so
tráfico en
we
esta
realize
calle
that
todos
it's
los
not an
días, entonces
ideal
nos damos cuenta
condition.
de que no es
So those are
una
things
condición
that
ideal.
we will research.
Estas son
We
cosas
do
que vamos
have kind of
a
general warrants
investigar.
about what type
Tenemos
of
ideas generales
bikeway would go
acerca de
in
la clase de
based
ciclovía que
on
vamos a tener ahí,
again,
en
based on
base
how many cars
pues
are
en
parked,
cuántos
based
carros están
on how
estacionados, la
much,
cantidad
how
de
busy the street is,
lo
where
ocupado que
we've
está
seen crashes, what the
la
speeds look
calle,
like, that
donde
kind of
vemos
thing.
choques,
So
esa clase de
that's
cosas.
kind of the information
Entonces,
that we
esa es
use
la
to make
información que
a
utilizamos
decision about
para
what the design looks like. Where we're really at
determinar
now, though, is just
cómo,
kind of trying to
cómo esto va a afectar el
is
diseño,
this
pues,
the
pero
best street to have a bike on,
esta
or
es
is
la,
there,
realmente la
or
mejor calle
are
para
there
tener un los
other
carriles donde
places
es
that might be
realmente
more
donde estamos
comfortable?
ahorita, pues.
Great, thank you.
Es decir, si hay otras calles que a lo mejor sean mejor donde debe ir esa,
Anybody
para esa
else?
ciclovía. ¿Alguien más?
Okay,
Muy bien.
Riley, back to you.
Riley,
All right.
de nuevo a ti.
So those are all the
Bueno,
projects
esos
that we wanted
son
to
los
talk to you
proyectos que
about tonight.
los queríamos
So just in
hablar
terms of
contigo esta
next
noche, o sea, en
steps,
términos de los
again,
próximos
encourage you
pasos.
to take
Quiero
the
instarlos
survey
a
that I
que
just mentioned, and that is
participen en la encuesta. Pueden ver,
bit.ly/GES-bikeways.
acuérdense de ir a la página
And then we will be taking all of the
bit.ly
feedback that we
diagonal
heard from the
GS
survey, and we'll be kind
ciclovías,
of
pues,
taking that back, and
y
that will
estamos tomando
be
eso, pues,
what we consider as we
lo
start
que
to work
nosotros
on the
consideramos
next phase of the
conforme
project, which is
comenzamos a
actually
trabajar en la
designing it.
propia
So designing
etapa
what
del
happens
proyecto, que
first, and
será
designing what
diseñar lo
happens
que estamos haciendo
on,
o diseñar
the
lo que
Lincoln
pasa,
Street
pues,
neighborhood bikeway.
en
So we will
la
be
ciclovía
coming
de la
back to the
calle Lincoln
community
Street.
in April. That date is still to
Vamos
be
a
determined,
regresar
but
en
we will
abril
be
de
having
nuevo.
a follow-up meeting
Vamos
to
a
be able
tener
to
una reunión
share
para darle
how
seguimiento, para
we've
poder compartir
to share
cómo
what we heard from the survey and
compartir lo
how
que
we've
estamos
incorporated
escuchando,
that feedback
las
into
ideas que
the
nos
designs.
plantean
If
en
there's
las
questions, or if you
encuestas.
weren't able to
Si tienen alguna
access
pregunta
the
o si no
survey
pudieron
online, you
accesar
can
la
email
encuesta en
Anthony
línea,
Aragon at denvergov.org.
ustedes
He'll be able
conocen
to
que Anthony
help you
Aragon,
access the
pueden
survey
enviarle un
online.
correo a
And
él.
if you have any
La
general
dirección de él está
questions,
ahí, es
you can
Anthony
also
Aragon
email
a denvergov.org bikes@gov.org.
for more information. And it's
Y
helpful
también
if you
pueden
put the
mandar un correo
subject or the
electrónico
street that you're interested
si
in the
escribiendo
subject line. That way, the person that monitors that email inbox
denvergov.org.
knows the
Y es
appropriate
útil
staff
si
member at
ponen
the
los
city to be able to
detalles
direct that email to you.
lidiando
For those of
específicamente
you on the
sobre qué calles
phone,
están
it's
hablando. De esa manera se dirige a la
Anthony.Aragon
persona.
at
Para aquellos que están por
denvergov.org.
teléfono,
So just
la
so
dirección
that we
es
don't want anybody to miss your email.
anthony.aragon @denvergov.org.
So I think.
Catherine, Joshua just added a question in
Catherine
chat.
acaba de
okay.
agregar otra
Hi,
pregunta.
Joshua. Any updates on the larger connections
¿Alguna
to the streets, like 51st
actualización en
Avenue
las
Bridge
conexiones más grandes de las calles como la 51 y
and its connection to
el
the
puente de la
decisions around the National
51
Western?
que cruza el
That'd
Platte?
be a good question
Y,
for either Beth
y
or
cómo
Karen, so
se
you just
liga
refer
eso
to
pues
one of them.
al Centro National Western. Eso está en
Hey
limbo.
guys, it's Beth. Karen, did you have an update?
Hola Karen, ¿tienes una
I was just going to say, I
Solo
don't
yo
think
de
we
decir,
have an
no
update
creo
right
que
now. I
tenemos
think that's in
nada que informar, no
the
tenemos
list of
novedades
coming
sobre esto,
soon.
está en la lista de las
But
cosas con
I
las que
don't
vamos a
think we
lidiar
have
pronto,
an update.
pero no
And
tenemos
again, we
novedades
will
ahorita.
use this group to
Vamos a usar
push
este grupo
information out,
para
not
dar
just to
información,
you all,
no
but
solo para
as I
todos
mentioned
ustedes, pero como
before,
mencioné
getting you
anteriormente,
all to share
para
the
que todos
information
ustedes
with
compartan la
your
información
networks as
junto
well.
con su
Beth,
red.
did I miss anything
Y
there?
vea,
No, I
me
think
hizo
that's
falta
fine.
algo
I think
ahí. No,
these
yo creo
things
que
are
está
just
bien. Yo
progressing
creo que estas
along, so
cosas están
maybe when we circle
progresando,
back
así
with
que
you next month,
necesitas,
for some of you who
vamos
are on the
a
CAG, we'll
hablar
probably be
contigo
able
el
to
próximo mes con
give a more,
algunos miembros del CAC
state of where
que
things are.
quizás nos puede dar
Yeah.
una
And
idea,
anything that we share with
un
you,
informe
we
acerca de dónde
also,
están más cosas,
again,
cualquier cosa que
are
compartamos
wanting
con
to share with
ustedes.
that larger
También queremos
community.
conversar con la
And we'll
comunidad en
also be
general
working with
y
the
vamos a trabajar
council
también
office, getting
con la
council
oficina
newsletter
del
and
Consejo
other
Municipal para
communications.
sacar un boletín informativo con más,
We're trying to
más
get this
detalles e
information
información.
out
Estamos
to as
tratando
many
de
individuals as
difundir esta
possible. So
información
if
en la
you have
mayor
any
cantidad de gente
suggestions,
posible.
as
Si
Gail
tienen
did
alguna
earlier,
sugerencia
to
acerca
help us
de
do that,
cómo
please don't
hacer eso, por
hesitate to let
favor, no
Anthony know.
duden de informarle a
Absolutely.
Anthony. Definitivamente.
Any other questions or
¿Alguna otra
comments?
pregunta o comentario?
I think, Anthony, we've
Yo
reached
creo
the
que
end of
Anthony,
our
hemos
meeting.
llegado al
Do you
fin
want
de
to add
nuestra
anything
reunión.
in?
¿Quieres agregar algo más?
No, again, just thank
No, de
everyone. I want
nuevo,
to just
solo quiero
personally thank
agradecerles a
everyone for giving of
todos
their time this
personalmente
evening.
por pasar
Again,
este tiempo
if you
con
have
nosotros.
neighbors who do
Si
not have
tienen
access
vecinos que no
and
tienen
don't use the
acceso,
internet,
no
because not
usan el
everyone
internet
does,
porque no todo el mundo lo hace,
please
por favor,
have them email me and I will
si
gladly
pueden trabajar
walk
con ellos
them
para
through
que
the
ellos
survey
manden un
on the
correo
phone.
electrónico y yo con gusto
So
voy a
that way
trabajar con ellos
their
por la
input
encuesta
is
por teléfono
captured.
para que
So
sus
again,
ideas sean compartidas medidas, así es que por favor manden correo anthony.aragon@denvergov.org. Y de esta manera, pues, porque queremos toda la información posible, queremos todos los comentarios posibles, queremos las opiniones, y sería más fácil para personas que no tengan internet.
I think a phone number
Yo
would be
creo que un
easier
número de
for folks
teléfono va a
who
ser
don't
más
use
fácil
the
para las
internet
personas que
regularly.
no usan el internet
Oh,
regularmente.
sure. So
Oh, sí,
I'll
seguro.
give you my cell phone.
Te voy a dar mi
That's what I
celular.
use. It's
Eso es lo que uso, es
720-252-0274. And I will include that in the chat as well.
Will you just repeat it one more
252-0274.
time, Anthony?
Repítelo una vez
Certainly.
más. Sí, 720-252-0274.
And I just added it to the chat.
Y lo acabo de
And
agregar en el chat
Angela, I
también.
believe you were going to say something.
Angela,
I
ibas a
interrupted
decir
you. My
algo y yo te
apologies.
interrumpí, lo siento.
Yes, I'm glad you know my voice.
Sí, me alegra que
and I've been
conoces mi
quiet
voz.
today.
Sí,
So I just want to throw
yo
in there,
quiero mencionar
we
también
have had an increase of people
que
who
tengo un
have
aumento de
wheelchairs in
personas
this
que
neighborhood.
tienen
And
sillas de
have you
ruedas
taken
en
that
este
into
vecindario.
consideration?
¿Has tomado eso en
Their
consideración?
needs?
¿Sus necesidades?
Karen, on the sidewalk piece.
Karen, sobre las banquetas.
Karen, you're on mute.
Yep, I figured it out.
Sí, me di
Thanks.
cuenta que está
Yes, all of our
silenciada. Sí.
sidewalk, that's
Todas
again
nuestras
why,
banquetas, de
if the
nuevo,
question
es
is
parte de la
related to the
razón por la
sidewalk
pregunta está
work,
relacionada
that's
con el
again
trabajo
why
en las
we
banquetas de
can't
nuevo, y
just
la
sort of
razón por
lay
la
them
que
out. We have to design them and make
no
sure
podemos
we have
sencillamente
curb
ponerlo, tenemos
ramps
que
and
diseñarlos,
have
que
everything
tenemos
in place
rampas,
so that we're not
y todo está en
creating
orden.
something that looks like it's usable,
No
but you
estamos
can't
creando algo que
access it. So that's
parece
something
que
the
es
ADA
útil, pero que no se
accessibility is something
puede,
that we are
pues,
absolutely positively
no
taking
podemos
into
accesar. Pues
account
así es,
with the
tenemos que tomar
sidewalk
en
design
cuenta todas las
and placement.
regulaciones de la ley de
And great question, thank you.
norteamericanos discapacitados.
Okay,
Es una
thank you.
muy buena pregunta, gracias.
Thank you, Angela.
Gracias, Ángela.
All right. Any
Muy bien.
other last
¿Algún
comments or
otro último
questions?
comentario, pregunta?
So we'll see you
Bueno,
again in April.
entonces
I'm
lo veremos
sorry.
de nuevo en abril. Lo siento, ¿alguna otra?
Did I cut somebody off?
¿Interrumpí a alguien?
Oh, I was just going to thank, this is
No,
Katie.
solo
I
iba
was
a
just going
decir,
to thank Anthony for the
eso es
phone
que
number
solo
and ask
agradecerle
if you
a
can also put
Anthony
that
por
on the
teléfono, si puedes
materials that
poner
are
también
going
en los
out to.
materiales que van a ser distribuidos.
Great idea. Thanks, Katie.
Magnífica
And it
idea,
doesn't have
gracias,
to be your
Katie.
cell phone, just
Y no
any
tiene que
phone
ser tu
number.
celular, puede ser cualquier
But
número
thank
de
you.
teléfono, pero
We're a
gracias.
close-knit group, so please, you have my cell
Somos
phone. Please do
un
not hesitate to
grupo
reach out to
muy
me
unido, así es
anytime
que no
if I can
dudes
be
en
of
llamarme
assistance.
si de alguna manera puedo
Thank you.
ayudar. Gracias.
Well, I'm going to wish all of you a
Bueno, les
good
voy a
evening
agradecer a
and thank
todos
you for
unas muy buenas
participating. We're going
noches.
to
Gracias por
reach out to
participar.
you again in April.
Vamos a
Please take
conectarnos de
a
nuevo en
moment if you
abril.
have
Tomen un
it
poco de
available to fill out
momento
the
para
surveys.
que
It's very, very helpful
por
to
favor,
us and
completen las
will inform us
encuestas. Es algo muy útil
as we
para
move forward
nosotros
on
y
the
vamos a
plans and
vamos a
designs.
seguirles informando
So
conforme
thank
avanzan
you
los
to all the
planes y
presenters
diseños.
and thank
Gracias
you
a todos
to
los
all of you. And
presentadores.
I hope
Gracias
you
a
stay
todos
warm and
ustedes y
stay
creo que
healthy.
todos ustedes se mantengan
Thanks,
calientitos
everybody.
y saludables. Gracias a
Thank you.
todos.
Bye, Catherine. Bye,
Gracias.
Angela.
Adiós,
See you.
Bye,
Catherine.
Angela.
Adiós. Adiós, Ángela.
Night.
Buenas noches.
Bye, Nora.
Adiós, Nora.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
Gracias a
Francisco.
todos. De
Yes,
nada.
thank you, Francisco.
Gracias, Francisco.
Good night.
Buenas noches.
Hey, Riley, real quick, if you need assistance with creating a flyer to Gail's point, let me know because we have the background already for the invitation. We can easily just shift a few things around to include the survey information, and then we can use that as a visual to Karen's point to get it to the councilwoman's office pretty quickly for their newsletter.